From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
So it's just not worth it. No trail is worth it.
Search paused. The latest on a hiker missing near East Rosebud Lake, and what else is on hold due to fast-moving water.
It's a gut feeling.
Seeking safety, a growing issue, why women in the Billings community are not feeling safe, and what's being done to address it.
It's very cool to finally, do something being from Montana and representing Montana.
And practicing positivity, how a Billings student is advancing himself to global optimism with his power of speech. Those stories and much more coming up in the next hour. Good morning and welcome back to Montana This Morning on this Friday the 13th.
It is Friday the 13th?
Thursday earlier. I didn't even want it to be Thursday.
Hey, it's almost a week.
Yeah, we got Miller, his sign.
Good morning,
I couldn't have
everybody.
messed it up today. The sign, or this time, the sign had me.
Well, it is Friday the 13th, like you mentioned, and unfortunately, it may be fitting today because it can be kind of spooky with the weather out there. We do have a threat of severe storms, not only today, but all the way through the long Father's Day weekend. So just be careful. You want to monitor the forecast, especially if you're going to be outdoors. Could be kind of rocky out there. Yesterday, our high of 78, our low of 55, both just a bit above average, but we'll just call it generally seasonal. Top gust yesterday of 34 miles an hour. Turned out to be a beautiful day yesterday for the most part. No rain really here in Billings to speak of. We're in the hole for the month. We're still pacing ahead for the year. Now, we do have some active storms over to our east this morning. Forsyth, Colstrip, Lame Deer, maybe getting some thunderstorms this morning at least. You'll see some moderate to heavy rainfall possible as we pull back. We have some down northern and northeastern parts of Wyoming off to our northwest here too, like in Roundup off to our north, Harleton off to our northwest, maybe getting a little bit of rain this morning. But there's the big threat today, a chance of severe storms. Now give or take an hour, this could slide just a bit, 1 p.m. till 10 p.m. Look at that, right in the heart of the map. That is enhanced, a 3 of 5 risk, which means a better opportunity to see those strong winds, large hail, and heavy rain. Very low risk for tornado activity, but it's not completely off the table, so we have to mention it. Just keep an eye on the forecast all the way through the weekend because of the threat of severe weather, and we'll tell you more about that threat coming up here in just a little bit.
Yeah, well, tornado and Father's Day, that's like the last time, the only other tornado in
the
Billings.
big Father's Day tornado. Yeah. Ain't that weird? Yeah, so
Timing's
hopefully
weird.
it won't be the case this year, but still, it's going to be kind of dicey out there.
Yeah, thanks, Miller. Appreciate it.
You got it.
We begin with breaking news in the Middle East this morning as we are following renewed unrest. Tensions boiled over as Israel launched airstrikes against Iran. The move is a dramatic break with the Trump administration, which has argued against such a step. The attacks come as the administration's special envoy to the Middle East is planning to meet for a 6th round of talks with Iran about a potential nuclear deal. The Israeli military says these strikes targeted top military leaders as well as the country's nuclear program and long-range missile capabilities. It is believed that some of those leaders may have been killed. Iranian state media reported multiple explosions could be heard in Tehran. It's also warned that they plan on carrying out multiple rounds of attacks. Uncertainty surrounds a deadly Boeing 787 crash in India with more than 250 people on board. Officials are confirming one man who had been on the plane survived and is being treated at a hospital. Meanwhile, more than 290 are expected to have been killed when the plane crashed into a residential area. The Air India flight went down in a residential area after taking off on a 4,000-mile journey to London. Pilots issued a mayday after takeoff and lost signal less than a minute into the flight. The tail of the plane is resting on top of a hospital today. At least 250 people from the plane, including members of the crew, are expected to be dead, and at least 30 bodies were recovered from a building where the plane had crashed, with many others trapped inside. The Transportation Safety Board is working to pinpoint what caused the accident. This morning, the legal battle over President Trump's deployment of the National Guard to Los Angeles is heating up. Overnight, a federal judge sided with California, ordering the Trump administration to return control of the National Guard to Governor Gavin Newsom. Then, an appeals court halted that decision, allowing the Guard to stay in place. This as the fallout continues after a Democratic senator was physically removed while trying to question the Secretary of Homeland Security yesterday. Jared Hill has more from New York.
In a late-night decision, an appeals court ruled 4,000 National Guard troops can stay on the streets of Los Angeles under President Donald Trump's control for now. The decision quickly reversing a federal judge's order to pull back the troops and hand control back to California's governor.
He is not a monarch. He is not a king.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla.
Hours earlier, a chaotic scene.
Hands on your back.
Democratic California Senator Alex Padilla, in plain clothes, was forcibly removed from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's press conference.
If this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers.
On X, Noem accused Padilla of creating a scene, adding that she and the senator later briefly met and exchanged numbers.
His approach, was something that I don't think was appropriate at all. But the conversation was great.
All of it a response to the anti-ICE protests sparked by immigration raids in LA, the movement spreading across the nation. Last night in Newark, New Jersey, demonstrations outside an immigration detention center alleging poor conditions.
They're not getting good food, it's really dirty, and they don't always have access to visitation.
Amid the crackdown, yesterday President Trump signaled he may make an exception on immigration enforcement for farm workers. Jared Hill, CBS News.
As of Thursday, the search for a missing 23-year-old hiker is now on pause as he's presumed drowned in East Rosebud Creek. The man was swept in Sunday afternoon in an area near Rimrock Lake. The conditions are extremely dangerous for even the most experienced, and they've been even more difficult since the 2022 floods washed away a bridge. Our Mac Carmack shows us how backcountry risks can turn deadly and how to stay safe.
A 1,000-year flood in 2022, still causing impacts 3 years later.
June 12th of 2022, this 1,000-year flood, some people call it, came through. And it not just took out the bridge, it took out bunches of sections of the trail below there, and it took out the road getting to East Rosebud Lake.
The roaring waters of this flood wiped out safety precautions on the beautiful 26-mile hike known as the Beaten Path.
It's just best to stay away until the trail work is complete and the bridge is in.
Joe Josephson, the director of the Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness Foundation, is warning all hikers to avoid the trail until further notice.
So effectively, the entire 2.5 miles from Elk Lake to Rimrock is an active construction zone.
The Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness Foundation works alongside the U.S. Forest Service to help best educate the public on accessing the wilderness. And in doing so, Joe himself ventured into the East Rosebud Creek to check on the water levels just 3 days before an unnamed hiker went missing at the same location.
It can go up and down, dramatically overnight.
When Joe filmed this video on June 5th, the water levels looked shallow and manageable. But Joe says looks can be deceiving.
So it's just not worth it. No trail is worth it.
The U.S. Forest Service is in the process of rebuilding the trails and bridge that were lost in the 2022 flood.
Give the search and rescue teams and those Forest Service crews that are breaking their backs to get that trail put in for all of us, give them the space they need to do their job.
And until Labor Day, when he estimates construction will be finished, Joe is warning all hikers to stay away from the beaten trail, even though its beauty is undoubtable.
It'll still be there this time next year.
Reporting for MTN News, Matt Carmack.
As the U.S. Senate works on President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill, a Montana group is sounding the alarm, saying the bill is, if passed, could have a big impact on Medicaid. According to a report from the Healthcare Foundation, there are currently more than 214,000 Montanans enrolled through the state's Medicaid program, with up to 31,000 potentially losing coverage in the first year. Most of those, about 27,000, would likely be adults on the Medicaid expansion program. 60% of those losing coverage would be in rural Montana. The report also estimates over the next 10 years, the state could see more than $5 billion less in health care spending for low-income Montanans.
The federal government pays a pretty high share of our program. So that means as changes happen, we may lose a higher proportion of federal dollars than other states.
Wernham says the biggest changes would be increasing how often recipients must confirm eligibility and adding work requirements for those on Medicaid expansion. Supporters of the federal bill have said the changes are aimed at strengthening Medicaid by ensuring only those who should be on the program are actually on it. This morning, we are putting safety in the spotlight. Several Billings women say strange encounters during routine trips to the store have them on edge, with some saying they feel they're being followed and stalked. We looked into those claims and what police are saying.
It's a gut feeling.
A frightening feeling, all too familiar for women everywhere.
Being made to feel uncomfortable it's a scary thing.
The feeling of being watched or stalked.
It's terrifying.
An unfortunate but common scenario, stirring up anxiousness in women around Billings.
It was fear, and I just wanted to run and hide.
It's very scary, just because, maybe you're a young teen or a woman, you always have to look over your shoulder.
Hallie Knox and Kyla Kinker are among the nearly 70 comments on this Facebook post sharing different scary stories. Knox, a local hairdresser and tattoo artist, says her story involves her 15-year-old daughter and a night trip to Target.
She went to another aisle, and they kept being in that same aisle.
That's where Knox's daughter says a group followed her around the store, eventually following her to her car as she drove away on Central Avenue.
That is the scariest thing. That is your worst fear as a parent, is losing a child.
For Kinker, there's been a couple different instances, most recently at the Billings Mall.
We're walking to the play area, and all of a sudden I feel somebody behind me.
That's where she says a man followed her and her daughter around before she ducked into a busy store.
I get angry, and it makes me mad.
We do get calls occasionally. I wouldn't say, that it's a frequent thing.
Lieutenant Samantha Puckett says her department does receive a few calls a year about suspicious behavior. Her advice is to trust your gut.
If you are that uncomfortable that, you feel unsafe, then, go to a populated area, call, if you feel like it is an emergency, call 911.
According to the CDC, 1/3 of women have experienced stalking at some point in their lives, with 58% of those victims experiencing it before the age of 25. That's why Puckett is reminding women to stay vigilant.
Regardless of the time of day, to be aware of your surroundings, to not be, looking at your phone.
A reminder echoed by Knox and Kinker, knowing the importance of keeping your guard up.
It's always better to overreact, because the second that you don't and you just play it off like, oh, it's nothing, that's when something can go terribly wrong.